Happy Wednesday, Shane. How are you?
I'm awesome. How you doing, Scott? I'm freaking awesome, bro.
I am kind of recovering. I donated blood about 5 hours ago, so I'm still,
Oh,
trying to kick it into gear. Been drinking a lot of fluids, took a little bit of a nap just so I could get ready for this show. It is Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. Welcome into another episode of Manic and Chill. Thank you, everybody that's here.
thanks.
That's watching this on the replay. Of course, support everybody on the channel. Content still dropping daily. We just had a Shane Says drop. We had a Destination Dynasty drop. We're going to have some mock draft content dropping. Shane, it is free agency. The legal tampering period starts in 5 days, less than 5 days now. And we will be pumping out quite a bit of live content and video content for those couple days in real time. So I'm sure we will talk about it next week on Manic and Chill because we will have basically the whole free agency that already took place before next week's episode. But we'll be putting some more stuff out starting Monday when all the news starts to break. I don't know if you remember from the last couple of years, Shane, but that Monday, the legal tampering period that starts at noon is just
bananas.
I mean, it is there are tweets beyond tweets ready to fire away right at noon. It's like, how did you get that in at 12 o'clock and 1 second? Did the news just break, or has it been known for 2 days before and that tweet was ready to go? But yeah, that'll be fun to go through that. A lot of the free agency stuff that happens this year. So stay tuned to the channel for that. This is Shane's topic tonight. When I asked him what he wanted to talk about, I don't think he worded it as Dynasty Decay in the Ascension of Super Redraft, but the idea was, well, you tell the people what the idea was when you came up with this topic. It's basically what?
I mean, there's a bunch of old principles, right? In Dynasty, there was the thought that you build through youth, that you can have a rebuild that lasts, I don't know, 3-4 years. You can do the productive struggle, things like that. You don't trade for running backs. You want quarterbacks, even if they don't have spike value, because they have long-term value. Hence the Bryce Young, yeah, on the thumbnail. Saquon's like one of those running backs in the olden days, like 3 years ago. We might not have been given up first and multiple firsts for in season, but we do now. And what I've done is, I'm looking at some of my teams trying to make trades. And what I've noticed is a lot of the teams that went for the title, I've sold out a lot. I don't have a lot of picks to make, and I don't have a lot of flexibility. So that's kind of where it crystallized in my mind, is just, and I don't think I'm alone, because I look at other teams in my leagues, and there's a lot of teams with no draft picks. They just, they're throwing them around like nickels as opposed to potholes. Nope, not potholes. What do you call those? Covers? What are those? Pothole covers? What are those things? Manhole covers.
Manhole covers? I wondered where you were going with that. Pothole covers?
Yeah, in the old days, you used to throw picks around like manhole covers. Now, it's more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? More of a nickel. It's light. You throw it. And just in general, I was thinking about this last night, going outside. For some reason, it struck me. I remember 2 years ago, me and you were literally sell every running back that we could come across, literally every one of them. And now, when we talk about teams, and I've noticed on the roster reviews, one of the things, it's not like the first thing we do, but we do look like, how can I improve the running back room, which is almost the antithesis of what we believed 3 years ago. Now, there's still some things that are the same there. We still only want a specific range. We're not going to go crazy over the running back 12. We'd rather the running back 20 in a second than the running back 12. But just things like that. And again, I'm sure, like I said, like they're Tony Perez. He has no first until 2027. Sold out big time for the chip. Yeah. We used to at least keep an eye towards the future, right? Some of the moves you used to make might have been a little muted. Now it feels like there's no more of that. There's still a few people that want to hold on to picks, but I think they get moved more frequently. And like I said, just things like, I don't know if like people do the productive struggle anymore, right? Because I don't know that anyone has the patience to deal with that for 2 years of being bad. So that's what brought it to mind. All those things, all that word salad.
Well, I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different direction because we have some questions. We want to hit some trades. Put your comments in the chat if you want to trade answer. This is going to be not that there's not a ton going on. There's obviously a lot of news that's been breaking the last couple of days. I'm sure it's going to continue into the weekend, but this is just one of those shows where we want to sit back, kind of talk through this macro trend that's happening in the Dynasty space. So we'll get to that. We'll get to some of your questions, put some trades in there. I want to talk about a couple individual players, situations, etc. But I think this is the elephant in the room, Shane. And it starts, in my opinion, and feel free to chime in and chat, same thing, as Shane disappears. But the start of this approach, I think, is twofold. If we're speaking specifically to the Dynasty mini/quick redraft approach from a lot of managers. Shane, you're back. You good? Mr. Cheese-It?
Yeah, yep. Just my camera every once in a while is like, no, I've had enough of this dude, and I'm not going to show him anymore.
And fun fact, somebody actually texted me during the Senior Bowl, and they said, is that Shane on the field with a Cheez-It shirt? So Shane's giving Cheez-It a lot of free promotion. I assure you, they are not sponsoring the show, nor would they, because it is, let's just say, probably not the healthiest food that you could eat. But anyway, wow. So here's my thought. I think the changeover to a lot of people playing best ball, meaning it's so prevalent now, Underdog, best ball, gambling is very prevalent. So we brought a lot of people into the space that are looking for, I don't want to say they're looking for an immediate dopamine hit or an immediate result, but a lot of people come into Dynasty from those places, right? They're either playing best ball or they're playing, other games, or they're coming from the gambling space. And they're migrating over via Sleeper. And I'm just going to put Sleeper out there because Sleeper is the platform a lot of people play Dynasty on. Most people play Dynasty on. And it just has bred the ability for you to get in and out of a Dynasty league very quickly, right? It's not that cumbersome to start a Dynasty league, put some money up. It's real easy to make transactions and make moves, etc. And I think the dark cloud over the Dynasty space is there are a lot of leagues, Shane, that the reason people play this way, because there's not a lot of accountability. There's not a lot of accountability if you just play this way, play for 2 years and bounce. And the good news is, because the space is designed how it is, and because of the fantasy football game being the way that it is, and the way that I would say the NFL is with rookies coming in immediately. Look at last year. If you just had a team of the right rookies, you won. You didn't just compete, you won. So people see that and they go, well, I'm not worried about turning the team around if I have some picks and I have some young players and I have an active league where I can maybe find some strategies to, cut some corners, right? So I think that breeds people always willing to take over orphan teams and do dispersal drafts. And as long as it's not completely hopeless, it kind of feels like this perpetual cycle is good for the community to be able to turn teams over and over, but it also leads to people saying, you know what? If this league doesn't last more than 3 years, it's no sweat off my back. I made my run. And knowing that, but here's the thing, knowing that and not knowing if your league is going to be like that, I am much more apt to think about that today than I would have been 5 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like even my brain has shifted towards, and it's not that I want the league to fold or I'm going to fold the league or I'm going to quit the league. I've always been pretty respectful when I leave a league. Like I'll pay the buy-in for the future manager. I'll find the future manager, but we're lucky enough where we have a community where if we do that, we can find somebody to do it. Not all managers do that. But even so, I mean, how many times have you wondered, hey, is this league even going to be around next year? Is this league even going to last till 2027? So if that's the case, like, are you more apt to play that way? And I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's the elephant in the room. People, you have to acknowledge it because it is true. Anybody out there playing in a lot of leagues, guarantee you've run into 10 to 20% of your leagues on an annual basis that potentially fold. And that's just reality.
That's what I was going to say. Generally, there's I'm in 30 plus leagues, right? So generally there's 2 or 3 that fold every year. There might be up to 5 some years. This year, I don't think I'm actually in any leagues that folded. I did leave leagues, several different reasons. Some because they're MFL. Then I found out there's Heisman leagues on Sleeper, and I was forced to join an MFL Heisman league, but that's another story. What was my point? Oh, I try to play with the sense that the league is going to continue. Like, I don't ever go into the league or make trades like, F it. This league's probably not going to last 2 more years anyway. Like, I know when I'm trading away my picks in the future, I definitely feel the burn. Right. And it's partly why I've taken on this new mantra of I'm not trading 26 picks until at the earliest in season in 2025. And I think in the past, there's been times, and now mind you, I just did a startup where I traded my 26 first, but that's neither here nor there. But in general, that's just kind of a rule that I'd like to make for myself, because again, I just go under the assumption that the league is going to survive. That's just my optimism, because I am an optimistic, shiny, happy fella.
Yeah, I don't even know where you went with that last part, but I think just had to be mentioned. I didn't want to go the episode without bringing up the fact that there's a reason that this exists, and it's not necessarily because this is the best way to play. We all know the math on, well, if I sell out and I win a championship, I pay for my buy-in for X amount of years. Like we already acknowledged that, but that doesn't make it the strategy behind it. It's not a math equation as why you would play this way. I just wanted to put that out there because it is common. A lot of leagues only last 2.5 years, You know
what we need? We need Dynasty Daddy to pull sleeper leagues, all the sleeper leagues, and see the concentration of draft picks between teams. Generally, like how many teams hold the draft picks, something like that. Because I know, like me personally, like I'm a draft pick whore. It's funny, I'm the one that said the Dynasty Decay, and this is my title. Meanwhile, I'm talking about this startup we're doing. The rookie picks are in there. I've got 3 first-round picks, so I love picks still. Like I will always love picks, because that is the one constant throughout Dynasty is that will always hold value, and it can always be used to bail you out of something as opposed to a player.
So before we get into, kind of some more of the strategy behind it, because I do think it is a viable way to play, and it doesn't mean if you play it, you're selling your future entirely, right? There's ways to kind of operate on the edges.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain spots with the current Dynasty market that probably you can be more likely to be able to recover if you're wrong. But let's just talk about, in a utopian world, how would you want it to be set up? Because I've thought about every league I start going forward, which is easy for myself to say because I can usually find people in our community or whatnot to join it. But what are some parameters you can put in play so that your league doesn't take on this, well, I'm just going to sell out, and, especially, and I'm a commission a lot of leagues, and it can be tough even on Sleeper to track, everybody trading their picks. You know what I mean? Like it's tough. So there's definitely people that exploit that. What's the solution though?
I mean, you have to make people pay for their first when they trade.
Well, forget paying for first. What about just 5 years of a buy-in up front?
You could do that.
$150 league. Everyone puts in $750. Yeah. You're committed for 5 years. And, who knows where the world is in 5 years. So I'm not even looking that far down, but at least I know the league is going to go through multiple cycles of drafts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 5 years is kind of ridiculous, but I joined a startup a couple months ago or a month ago. I don't even remember, where it was 3 years up front, but I didn't realize that. I thought
is 5 years that ridiculous when by a month into the league, somebody's already traded 3 years of picks?
Well, so here's the thing: if they've already, that's true, because
you're right. There's going to be 1 or 2 people every league that are already into their 3rd year of picks trading them, right?
Well, if you're making them pay 5 years up front, yeah, but what's to stop them then to go, you know what, I'm trading my 2030 pick today?
Well, but my point is that there's already going to be a couple people that by the bylaws should be paying their 3rd year of dues already because they traded their picks, right? So I get it. You have to have 12 people or whatever it is to come up with the 5 years of a buy-in, but you're already allowing people to trade for 3 years. So 5 years is just giving you a little bit more certainty into multiple off-season iterations where you can say, the league's going to have full buy-in with people. You're going to have less people that are willing to just step away. And I'm not calling anybody out, but a lot of people, they go, I get busy. I'm busy too. You're busy. I can't run every single team the way that I want it run it during the off season. But that's not necessarily a reason to say I'm bailing on 15 leagues. And then lo and behold, that same person, I'm not going to call anybody out, Shane. I have somebody that's in 4 of my leagues. Okay. Longtime player, been in 4 of my leagues. Messaged me at the end of the season, too busy, dropped 2 of the leagues, right? Now, because I have a lot going on, I didn't necessarily catch that he had stayed in 2 of the other leagues. In fact, one of the leagues paid the tax to go in the dispersal and redraft the team in that league, right? So how do you deal with somebody like that?
Well,
like,
so he dropped.
They're quitting 2 leagues, but staying in 2 others, but actually paying more to get into the dispersal and reboot their team.
I mean, that literally sounds like they're telling the truth. They're just like, I'm in too many fucking leagues and I'm going to cut some of them. Now, how they pick and choose that, I don't know.
I don't think it was I'm in too many leagues. I think it was just like life got in the way. It's the same. It's the same type of, and I get it. A lot of those excuses are legit. But you then went in the dispersal and took extra time to redraft your team when apparently you didn't have time to manage your other teams.
But this, it's harder to manage in season. It is, because there's a reason that at one point I was up to 55 leagues and I went, this is fucking insanity. I can't do this anymore because I'm spending, 15 hours a week or whatever, putting in starting lineups because I'm going in Thursday and then I'm going back Saturday and then I'm looking at them again Sunday morning. So I get that. I actually do get that. I understand that. Even if it's a little more time right now for him to do the draft or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everybody has their own situations, but I mean, if you're going to make an excuse like that, or you're going to say, I can't play in this many leagues, like I don't know. Anyway, let's get into some questions because we could just ramble on this. This was not meant to be a rant session on, some of these things that are the negative, because I do think it is a viable strategy to play Dynasty like redraft, and it doesn't include I'm bailing on my team, I'm quitting on my team, I'm just paying the buy-in for the next year and leaving. I think the way that things are set up, though, if you're active enough and you play with a process, you can operate on those margins. Maybe you don't trade every single pick for 3 years, but I don't think it's a terrible idea to kind of play on the fringes like I might not have a couple years ago.
I mean, so you can do things like to mitigate it, right? So if you sold your picks, but it's for a player, but is it a player that you could then split up if you need to later, right? So I'm going for the title now, and I trade for, let's just say, Justin Jefferson, right? I gave up 3 firsts for him, my 25, 6, and 7. And Scott made me pay till 2028 for that 5-year reboot or whatever. Even if I win the title and or if I don't win the title, it really doesn't matter in this equation. I can reboot off that, right? Because then I could just go back. Well, I can sell Justin Jefferson for 2 firsts and a player, or 1 first and 2 players, whatever the math might be, leaving yourself some flexibility. It's more like when you go and pay like a first for a Devontae Adams, who has no resale value the following season. Like, you're just, regardless of what he does, right? Regardless of where he signs, you're not going to get that in return for him now.
Yeah, and I think just getting into the start of the strategy, I think one of the things that has benefited myself is having a lot of teams, right? I think I'm going to be around 40 to 45 this year, probably, which is, it's a sweet spot. I think when you start, at one point I was in the 60s, which is too many.
Yeah.
But when you're in that range, you can actually hedge your own portfolio against itself, where I don't mind having, let's say I'm in 40 leagues, Shane. I don't mind having 5 of those just being ones that are like, I'm just not even really paying attention anything other than just grinding any roster spot, collecting every pick. Like, I don't care about those 5. I'm parking those over on the side, and they're leagues that really are going to take a lot more work in a year or 2. The only work I'm doing is basically trying to grind anything that I have that can get value during the season. You know what I mean? Or during the waiver wire periods and stuff like that. But the fact that I have so many, it kind of allows me to just forego 10% of the portfolio as up. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to quit those ones necessarily because of that reason. I can just use them as they're like training grounds to continue to have some teams that you're completely rebuilding on. It's more fun that way, I think.
Right. So I just thought this was funny. One guy in my league doesn't check messages and auto drafts third and fourth round picks because he has kids.
I mean,
here's the thing: the hit rate on third and fourth rounders are so bad that I don't even care about that. To be quite honest with you, I probably would have came up with a better excuse, more like, well, it almost doesn't matter who I draft because the hit rate on those are so bad. If I can't trade them away, maybe I should just let the computer pick for me. Just wanted to shout out John Bauer watching the show. If you missed it, Dynasty Theory is live on Mondays now, right? Tuesdays? What day is today?
Mondays.
It's Mondays. I get confused on what day it is. Yeah, they're Mondays live.
Yeah, let's get into some questions. We'll get back to the topic in about 15, 20 minutes, but we got a lot of questions, some trades. We got some people from last week that have questions that we didn't get to. So where you want to start? Put a bunch of them in the chat for you.
Here, let's just grab one random one. I've heard Scott talk about retracting teams from a league. Just wondering, what's the best way to go about it? He has a 16-team league, and he's looking to just get rid of 2 bad orphan teams and move to 14. What's the best way to retract? Me, personally, I think you just put an auction budget out there and let everyone do an auction on those players.
Well, this was a super chat from K-Mac. Forgot to highlight that. Thank you, K-Mac, for the super chat. So let's talk about it. And I mean, the chat can chime in. It's not like I have the perfect answer on this, but come on. Let's keep the question up. There we go. What are you doing?
So anyway, retracting, right? What's the best way to go about it? I mean, just from a fairness perspective, I just think an auction's fine. Like, just put the players up and go auction. I don't know what the crowd thinks.
Well, you have to find a way to give the 2 teams that are dissolving a way to appropriately dissolve the players onto the other rosters without influencing the value of rookie picks, for instance. Because I can only share 2 experiences where I've ever had this type of thing happen. And it can't be the same as an expansion draft per se, right? Because in that, you're creating teams from the ground up, so you can kind of build in constraints and advantages to allow those teams maybe to be the first to get somebody off waivers, to be the first to get players after a certain round in the rookie draft, to be, automatically bumped up to the top of the rookie draft round for the next round or for the next year or something like that. But when you're contracting, how would you set it up with taking, let's just assume each team has 2 elite players. Let's just not assume these are terrible teams. They're just, you want to cut down from 16 to 14. 16 is tough to fill orphans. It really is. Now, he says they're bad, so I'm guessing they don't have more than maybe 1 or 2 assets each, but they also have their future picks, I assume. What do you do with those? That's the first question. It's going from 16 to 14. What do you do?
They're in the auction. All the assets are in the auction.
But they're not there. They're gone. It's now a 14-team draft. What if one of them traded a pick? One of them did it. How do you account for that?
It's
not a 16-team draft order anymore. The teams are gone.
13-team.
So their best assets might have been their future picks, but they're gone. So do you keep it a 16-team draft for the next year and give put those picks in? What do you do?
Yes. You have to. You don't have to, actually.
How many years out, though?
You could literally just remove their picks from the equation since there's only 14 teams, assuming they didn't trade them away. If they did trade them away, that does get more complicated because then they need to go into the dispersal, into the auction. So,
no, if they traded them away, then the potential 2026 105 is on another team. It can't be removed from the draft.
No,
it's on another team. So the draft almost has to include more teams than teams next year. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It has to include more rounds or more picks than teams because you're going to have that contracted team still accounted for in the draft. So I think that's the first thing with the picks. If none of the picks are traded, you can just wipe the picks. Or if you want to because here's the problem. If there's let's say there's only 2 elite assets on both teams, Shane. So there's 4 total elite assets. Keeping the picks in there might actually spread out the talent a little more. and allow for it to be a little more fair to go across more teams.
But that's
contraction draft.
Yeah, but you're right. That's only if they have their picks. If they don't have their picks and they traded them, then you're pretty screwed there.
Well, if they traded them, you have to account for the picks that they currently have. You have to put those in the auction. You probably have to, or draft whatever you do.
If they
kept them. If they kept, let's say they kept a first, but not their second. You have to have a 16-team draft the next year, but you also have to put the picks they have. You have to disperse those. You almost have to run the draft like they were in the league until all their picks on other teams are gone. Does that make sense?
And if it's sleeper, that could be freaking 2027.
Oh.
So
that's the first thing to account for. How do you allocate who gets what auction funds?
I told you, everybody will get the same amount.
But that doesn't work. You can't give everybody the same amount and get access to, Jamar Chase with the same amount of auction dollars. You think?
You all have auction money. It's just like a startup auction, right? If you want to spend $1,000 on Jamar Chase, cool. If someone else doesn't want to spend that and they want to spend $100 on, I don't know.
But what if there's only 3 assets worth bidding on?
Well, then you all better bid up. I don't know what to tell you.
Here's the reason you can't do that, because would you make those
a draft?
No, would you make those auction dollars tradable?
Yes.
Okay, so doesn't that benefit the teams that are already good because they conceivably have more assets to trade for those auction assets that now they can buy for nothing?
They could, but then the bad teams are getting assets. So I'm trading auction money for future picks.
No, I mean, if I have a really stacked team, I can afford to go buy somebody else's $1,000 auction dollars. As Shane turns his camera off again. You get what I'm saying, though? I don't know if anybody in the chat has an opinion, but you can't give every team the same access to the couple elite assets that are getting contracted. There has to be a scale because the goal to come out of this is to make the league more balanced and have more parity than you just contracted because there wasn't that.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. We're spending a lot of time on this. There's not a fucking good way to do this. There just isn't. There flat out isn't. Because there's just not a good way to do this.
To the point, though, isn't it better to try something like this first before you just can the whole league?
I don't care. No.
I would just can the league. There's too much brain power to go into.
There's way too much effort going into this. Oh, I got to run a draft through 2027 with 16 picks in every round, even though we have 14 teams. No, I'm good. I'm good, bro. I'm good. Find me orphans or we're just starting over. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to another question. It was a good question. It's definitely one that I like to think about, but it could probably be it would be easier if we had an actual real life example where we could go through what we would think about doing. It's tough to just hypothesize because we don't have those specifics. So let's do this one. No, we're hitting another topic. Delete that one. Or don't delete it, but hide it. Keep your brain where it's at, okay? You thrive when your brain is on one topic. So now you're going to flip it and do a 180. Expansion, Shane. This team wants to expand. You know what you should do? Merge with the league that's contracting. And just have the 2 leagues marry each other and average it out. You'll have 2 good leagues instead of one that wants to expand and one that wants to contract. But so they have a 10-teamer and they want to go to a 12-team. I've done this before. And it's not as difficult because you're already bringing in 2 people that are knowing they're starting at the bottom, right? So you can do exactly like what Gavin is suggesting, protecting a certain amount of assets when you lose one. I mean, that's what pro sports franchises do when they have an expansion. You know, you can protect a certain amount of people, and if one of your players gets picked, you can protect some more, etc. But any thoughts on expanding? Have you ever been part of an expansion draft in a dynasty league or seen a league do something like that where you add?
I haven't, but this is just not stealing, but this is kind of like the Rule 5 draft in baseball. I don't know if you know about baseball.
I do.
Rule 5 draft. If you
not
don't
exactly, but
you can protect. It's lesser players than what's going to be on your roster, but you can protect. I think your roster is 25 men. You have to protect 25 men. After that, everyone else in your organization can be drafted to another team during this Rule 5 draft. It might be 40 actually. It's a 40-man protect.
It's 40, and it's more of a redistribution though because you're not adding teams. Here you're
no, but it's the same concept. Like if someone drafts a player off your team, then you can't lose a player in the next round. It's something like that.
If you're going from 10 to 12, okay, if I just told you, give a couple things besides what Gavin said, and he does have a second part of his question. He actually has a strategy or example with this going on in his situation. But if you were doing this, what would be your objective for the new teams? Like, you obviously don't want to give them the 101 and the 102. Like, you don't want to make it obvious, but you have to make it so that they can jump in with some level of a shot within a year or two. You know what I mean? Like, they have to be able to become a viable team in the mix pretty quickly. You can't say, oh, it's a 3-year rebuild because you're starting just off the waiver wire. It'd be tough to sell somebody. Like, anything you can think of?
Short of giving them, you could give them a compensation pick, a comp pick in the first round instead.
Would you push them to the top of the draft, or is that too much?
No, because that screws over the dude or the woman that's in the league, and they were actually like tanking correctly. And they're like,
you're
I got the 101.
You're the worst of the 10, and then now you're the 103.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I got the 101, and they're like, well, not so quick, Susie. You know what I mean? Like, that's not cool. Yeah. But I think everyone could live with, like, give them the 113, give them the 114. You know what I mean? If someone's going to bitch that bad, fine, then make it at the back of the second round, whatever. Just give them some additional assets, but not so high that they're getting an unfair advantage. They know what they're stepping into, right? And they're getting to take, they protect 4. So 1 out of every 4 players off another roster you can take.
Yeah. Here's his question. Current teams can protect 4. Then if they lose 1, they get to protect 3 more. And then if they lose 1, they get to protect 2 more, and so on and so forth. So essentially you could protect 10 players and you would only lose 3. So you'd get to keep 10 of your top 13 assets in theory. So here's his question. He currently has Allen, Kyler, May, Penix, Gibbs, Connor, Stevenson, Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, Chris Olave, Roma Dunze, Xavier Worthy, Jaden Reed, Deebo Samuel, Kyle Pitts, Tucker Kraft, and all of those picks. So you get to keep 4. Let's just go through the exercise for him. Keep 4, and then you keep 4, and then I'll tell you who I'm picking off his team, and then you do the next 3, and we'll finish the question like that. What 4 are you keeping? It's a 12 team. We don't know anything else. 12 teams start 10. That's it.
Joshua Allen.
Yep.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay.
That Malik Neighbors fella.
Okay.
And May.
Interesting. Okay. So you're keeping May?
Yeah.
Okay. I will draft off this team Kyler Murray. So who were you protecting now? You get to keep 3. I assume one of Kyler or May will be the draft pick. Once you keep 4.
Yeah, I've already protected May. So now I'm going to protect the 104, and I get to protect how many more?
So you protect 4, then I stole 1, and I think it's correct to protect one of the 2 QBs, and then assume one of them is going to be picked. So I took Kyler. Now you get to keep 3, and then I'm going to pick another one.
Yeah, 104, 105, and G-Dub.
Okay. See, that's where it gets interesting, because it probably forces me into now a decision of what else is available in the pool. Because if there's not a lot of quarterbacks, then it's like, man, Penix is sitting out there. But I could go Worthy. I could go Penix. I don't have any picks, so that's another tough one to kind of get, a specific roster build. I'll go Xavier Worthy with that pick. So now you get to protect 2 more, and then I get to take 1 more.
So I get to keep the 110 and the 26 picks. 26 first. All right, hold on. 26 first. Then do I want the 110, Devonta Smith, DJ Moore? You already took one of the quarterbacks?
I'm surprised you like Roma Dunze. You're not considering keeping him?
Bro, go watch Shane Says this morning. Or don't go back in time because you can't do that.
I already watched Shane Says, but I still would take Roma Dunze over DJ Moore.
I'm just thinking this through. I'm going to take, just because, you know what, Roma Dunze's market's pretty good. I think he's wide receiver 16 or 17 right now. So looking at it on KTC. So I'll take him and then the 26 first.
All right. And then I will, I guess, take Penix.
Okay. Not bad.
And so I came out of this off of Gavin's team with Kyler, Penix, and Xavier Worthy. and he protected everybody else.
Yeah.
So that'd be fun to do that in a league. Honestly, I don't have any 10-team leagues, but it's something. If I was in a 10-teamer, I would think about it because I think it would add some nice activity to the league. Don't you think?
Yeah, and look, it sucks being the team that just got picked from, but you still got to hold on to some really, really super strong assets. And that's just like when you voted to expand the league, you knew that was going to happen. Unless you were just going to be douchebags and be like, well, no. They just get waiver wire people and picks next year. Because then that just sets the league up for failure at that point.
We had a lot of suggestions in the chat. Tom said new teams have a separate draft just between the two of them. So they get basically their own little draft of all free agents and roster cut downs and leftovers after the keepers or whatever. I think that's interesting. If you told me everybody went through that process where you could keep 4, 3, 2, whatever, and at some point the most players you could keep was like 18, something like that, then let the two teams that are give them access to like this. It's like a super waiver wire. You know what I mean? Where they get to fill the rest of their rosters out before the rest of the leagues. I think that would be a good idea. There were a few others in here about different ideas with how to take that on. I kind of want to try something like that, but we got to continue. Let's see. A couple other questions in here. So Bengals gave us a question. Real quick player question. Speaking of current events, real quick. Thoughts on Juwan Jennings?
If I can get Jennings in the 9th, I think I like that a lot. I was listening to Dynasty Points on the way home, and that's funny. They were actually talking about Juwan Jennings versus Ricky Purcell. And I prefer Juwan Jennings straight up. And Purcell's probably going to be drafted over him, I'm assuming, since they're probably, how old is Jennings? He can't be that much older than Purcell, to be honest.
He's older. I mean, I think it's like his 6th year, but Purcell was going about 5 rounds higher than Jennings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that Debo's out of the way, and it sounds like, I mean, Ayuk could go too. So, I mean, they're both going to move up as, you know, the situation improves for them. But you're probably looking at, I don't know where Purcell is going since the Debo trade. I don't know if anybody has that. My ADP isn't updated through the trade, but I'm guessing it's still 3 rounds higher than Jennings ish, something like that.
Yeah. So I would take Jennings at cost. If that's I don't know if that's kind of cheating. Well, someone pointed out that I didn't pick Jennings in a startup in the 11th round. It's because I went quarterback in a 2 QB.
Well, let me hit you with some comparable receivers that are going to be in the 9th in a startup.
Okay.
What about, and this is with like rookies or with rookie picks included, right? So you got to move down the rounds just a little bit. Jennings or Chris Godwin? Devontae Adams.
Tay.
Even though you don't know where he's going to go, you're confident he's got another super year or two.
Absolutely don't care where he plays. I could quarterback for Devontae, and he's going to drop 1,200 yards.
I mean, these are guys in the same range as, you know, where the 9th would fall. Like Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Kind of feels like that's the range, but like that's not a range that's breaking your team. That's more of, I probably just need a couple of those guys, but I want a variety of all those names I gave you. I probably wouldn't want to be all in on any of those. You know what I mean? They're all extremely fragile, I think. So what are you smiling about? I see it.
Cody talking about this week in the Purcell pronunciations this week. Look, man, I'm from Philly. It's
Pearsall. It's not Purcell.
I'm from Philly.
Purcell. Shane has nailed it 3 different ways on this same show.
Dude, it just look. I have troubles pronouncing people's names correctly. I have for pretty much my entire existence. Part of it is the Delco accent that's going on here. I don't know if anyone watched what was that show? Never mind. It doesn't matter now.
I will say, Shane, you are blessed with the ability that even when you do not know how to say the word, it's like you've rehearsed how to say it wrong. It just it flows perfectly, seamlessly.
Yeah. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But anyway.
All right. Well, we had
and Sean's not going to like this. Again, I'm in a startup. So literally given this choice, it is the 11th round, and I have a choice between Devontae Adams. Apparently, Juwan Jennings is still on the board. Absolutely not. I'm going Tay.
First time Shane's looked at the board. Oh, there you go. I'll go Devontae Adams.
No, bro, I just traded up to get him. Sitting
Okay.
out there in the 11th. Anyway, sorry. No one cares about my fantasy football team. My apologies.
No, we do care. We have a couple questions in here, just quick trades that I wanted to get before we get back on the topic, because I said 15 minutes and it's been 20. We got a two-parter from Dynasty Griff. New orphan team and a 12x12 with tiered PPR. So that's right up our alley, Shane.
Oh, yeah.
Start one at all positions. I hate that. I don't know your opinion, but I tend to think that just makes it not as stressful for people to have to do stuff. But anyway, some people prefer that. Knicks, JJ McCarthy, Jacobs, Kyron, Pacheco, London, Hawkinson. And then we have the 102, 107, 203, 302, fourths, and fifths. Quarterback scoring based on accuracy. War looks to favor wide receivers over running backs. Not much on roster other than those mentions. Thoughts on ways to tear down and add depth in this 12x12. First problem I noticed on this is, Shane, these leagues where you only have to start, and people don't realize that we had a mock draft with Ryan McDowell that was based on this format. Remember that one, Shane? That
Dude, it was
my internet wouldn't cooperate and it never got released, but we did talk through this theory.
Internet did not cooperate, and the tasks that I was given did not go well.
Oh yeah, it was not. I mean, we're shamelessly willing to put a lot of different stuff on this channel, but it was not worthy of coming out onto a mock show. But anyway, we talked for like 10 minutes about this theory of when you only have to start one at each position. That's the first thing I noticed with this team, Shane, is like Kyron and Jacobs are going to be even harder to move in this league because it's only a start one running back. And I guarantee you there's a bunch of teams that are like, I have two good running backs and I don't need any more. And I'm certainly not trading them for, probably what the rebuilding roster would want. But what would you do with this? Like, how are you, what can you move on this team and tear down? Looks like that's his goal.
Next to 102, you could tear down with the 107 to a second and another second. I don't know if you want to do that. That's a pretty far drop from the 107. Maybe you could see who's got the 112. See if they'll give you the 112 in a future second for him.
Would you split London for like 2 mid to late firsts in this format?
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you get like a 108 and 112, would you do something like that?
Everybody on this roster is for sale and splittable because this is literally, he said this is his whole roster. Like this is all.
I assume, yeah. He's trying to add depth.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He named 7 players in a 12x12. Like that's rough, you know what I mean?
And one of them's Isaiah Pacheco, so that's borderline if that even counts.
And that's the thing, right? Like Jacobs is fine, Kyron's fine, but like unless this is your roster, like if you only have 7 like legit starters in a start 12, they need to be like Bijan, Jamar, you know what I mean? Like that level, and it's not there. So literally everybody's for sale and everything can be split.
Would you move Pacheco literally for just like a bevy of fourths and fifths? Just take stabs?
Yeah, give me them all. Give me them all.
I mean, what else are you going to get? What else are you going to get for him? Like, if they don't draft a running back, maybe you get a third. You know what I mean?
I will take the shots. I know they're low. They are low success rate, but that's why if I have like 8 of them, cool. If one of them hits, I've won. 2 of them hits. Oh, Jesus.
Isn't that what you do with a team like this, though? With you have so few players, shouldn't you be taking as many shots on fab bids? You know what I mean? Like you should be turning this roster over. And even if you only hit on a couple guys worth a second next year, you can basically create that value out of thin air by just churning and burning what other people cut.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good luck, Dynasty Griff. That's definitely one you got to stick with the process.
We do have a couple super chats that we need to get
Rip
to.
them.
All right. Wayne Lennon made a 3-way trade first time. Hey, I remember my first Menage. 1 quarterback, 12 team, PPR, start 8. He got JSN.
Was it a start 8?
Start 8. Yes. Got JSN.
That's the joke.
Yeah, that's a gangbang. That's not a Menage. Anyway, he got JSN, 327 first, 2 likely, the 111 and 12, and 2-1. He gave up JJ Ingram, a high 26 first, and a 27 second. So you've got let's say the 111, 112, and another random 27 first in JSN, you gave up.
Oh, that's the likely 101 and 102.
Oh, yeah, that's how math works. I'm sorry.
To be fair, he did not put the 0 in there, so it did look like the 11 and the 12. But it looks like he's getting two of the. I mean, that looks like you're getting at least a 50% shot or more on the. I mean, this could be Jeremiah Smith. As much as we joke about it, if you think it's the likely 101 and 102 in 2027.
Yeah,
I'm taking that side of the trade. I can live with the JSN versus Justin Jefferson if I get all that ammo. I'll take my chances.
I don't know, man. In start 8, I just feel like I'm not moving off JJ. I'm not moving off Jamar Chase. I'm not moving off these dudes for. Look, I like JSN, which is again not something that I said last year, obviously, but I don't know, man. That's you're punting 2 years down the road in a start 8. Like things are bleak.
But if Decay leaves, JSN's going to get 43 targets a game, Shane. That's how it works. Don't you think if that happens, you will be able to move JSN in one of those first for CD Lamb, potentially something like that? I mean, I think
if you can turn around and do that, sure, try it.
Dude, JSN's already a top 12, top 10 receiver. And if one of those other receivers, if Decay leaves, I think you have a potential that you might be able to easily tier from JSN to Neighbors for one of those high firsts. I think it's possible. So,
I don't know what this. All right, Stro 1439 actively promoting playing Dynasty as a 2-year run and go for the title and dip as long as you pay for the years and picks is a bad look on you guys. I don't think either of us actively promoted that in any fucking way whatsoever.
I mean, well, listen, I'll take the super chat to say something that we didn't actually do. We didn't promote doing that. We talked about it as something that people are doing, right? Like you can acknowledge that people are doing that.
Yeah, like I said,
we're out there saying, "Oh, go for broke," and then pay the dues and get out of the league. I mean, but people are doing it.
Yeah, like I said, I'm an optimist. I assume every league's going to last forever, and look, I've left leagues for various reasons. So, yes, I've left leagues before, but there's never been a time that like I actively was like, oh, let me just try to rip and run on this league. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, we're definitely not promoting it, but we're doing the community a disservice if we don't acknowledge that there are people out there that do it.
So Garrett mentioned if you don't make people pay for their fees for years, they trade your picks. You are playing with fire. This is correct. It's just a mess. You have to do it because then what you end up doing is not a lot of times, but you might have to just give away a team sometimes. You know what I mean? Like there's no buy-in this year because there's no picks and the team is ass.
Well, you know what I've had some success doing? 2 things. And I'm not, by no means do I think I have the perfect answer for this, but 1, putting it in your bylaws and allowing teams, even if you only want to do it every other year, allowing teams, and the key word is capital IF, if there is a dispersal, you allow teams to pay a tax to put their team in the dispersal. And it's not free. It's not willy-nilly every year I can recycle my team in the dispersal, but maybe it's every other year and you have to pay 50% of the buy-in. So if it's a $100 league, you got to pay an extra $50 on top of your dues for that year. So you don't get out of paying your dues, but you got to basically pay $150 and you can put your team and you can join into the dispersal. And you can only do it like every other year. You can't just do it year after year. But you know what it does? 2 things. It allows you to build the pot up a little bit. 2, if you ever need to discount a team, you can supplement it with that. But the other thing I've had success with is putting together dispersal lists and then allowing, and again, we're very fortunate to have a community of almost 1,000 people in DDFantasyFootball.com, shameless plug, but I can usually put it out there. And if it's creative enough, somebody will be interested. But I'll just say flat out, I just told a team the other day that I thought I would have trouble selling as an individual orphan. I put it in the chat, Shane. 2 years of buy-in, so I need you to commit for 2 years to this team. Message me how much you'll bid for 2 years. Highest bidder in the first 72 hours gets the team. And that's it. And I did that last year with 2 teams, and a couple people got teams for $24 for 2 years. In a $100 league, they got,
nice.
$12. Now, you have to have a way to supplement that. You can't just do that every year because you're eroding the pot.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, someone bid more than I thought. Like but it's a creative way because I would rather pay somebody's buy-in than have a terrible owner. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I'm not saying every league I want to pay the buy-in, but if it's like, man, that team's rough, I'm not paying $150 for that. I'll give you 70. And then I have a little extra in the pot because I've allowed people to put their teams in the dispersal or whatever. Like, dude, I'll put in the extra $30 into the league safe to get a good manager in there. But the key is getting a good manager, not someone willing to pay 70 versus 100 versus 50. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have the good manager than I would all of that. So it's put things in like that because there's going to be some turnover anyway.
All right, one more super chat from Matt Galore. One quarterback, start 8, PPR, JD5, Mahomes, Bijan, Jay Wright, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Rice down, Diggs, likely Fergie, only has the 102. Trade up for the 101, off-season plan, thanks. It's start 8. Yeah, I don't even want to say it. I don't want to say it. So I'm not going to say it. Is there that much difference between Genty and Hampton? Just that's the general vibe.
Yeah. No, we're not right now. The only difference is the 101 versus the 102 allows you to hedge against one of them getting a spot that's just insane.
Yeah.
And the other one being lukewarm.
Yeah.
Not that it changes their talent or it changes the fact that both probably go in the first, but there might be, there's a world, Shane, where either landing spot for Genty or Hampton, they are the RB1 in Dynasty as soon as they're drafted to that spot. And having the 101 versus the 102 is still a first gap between.
Sure.
That's the only advantage. And then to start 8, like that advantage could be worth, like, you know what it would be worth? I late first.
So
just to have it in the bag and I'll just take my chances.
So were you giving up 102 and Rice to get to the 101?
I'd rather do something.
That's probably the price.
I'd rather do something different with Rice, but with what's on the screen, there's not really a piece that's lesser than Rice that even has a chance to start the conversation. So
yeah, like Downs and Diggs. Look, you could try Downs.
I'd rather do a 26 first.
Yeah, 26 first and the 102 for the 101.
With that roster, with Neighbors, Marv, Rice, whoever I'm adding, Bijan, like I'd rather do my 26 first and just gamble that, because if that's the 107 next year, what did I lose? You know what I mean? It's a 107 and a 1 QB start 8. I can live with that.
I like it. So yeah, do that, Matt. Yeah, it's a start 8, so do what you can to get to that 101. That makes sense. 102 and another owner 26 first. Sure. Do it.
Here's one. And I'll give Michael a shout out. 12 teams start 11.
Nice.
Leave this into a roster review promo here in a second, Shane. 12 by 11, half PPR, 1.75 tight end premium. So how do you read that? Is that it is 0.75 for tight ends?
1.75. Oh, wait, it's a half.
Well, no, but it's half PPR. So is it just adding 0.75 or is it 0.75 total? Because it will make a difference, I think.
I would read that as 0.17. It can't be 1.75 because that's a 1.25 premium.
I think it's half for everything, and then it's 0.75 for tight ends, which makes it a very minimal premium, right? Maybe he can clarify. Maybe it's the one, like Sean says in the chat, maybe it's 0.75 on top of the half PPR. Yeah, if that would make some sense. That would make sense.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. Those tight ends would be war machines.
Well, that was going to get me into, is this a format that you would feel comfortable with one of the tight ends given the premium and that you would take the difference, or is it you're just taking the 102?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a 1.25,
it's super flex too. So, you're going to have access to a quarterback in there, a tight end. I don't know if there's a huge difference between 102 and 105 if you don't care about the running back, but it is a half PPR.
I would absolutely not do this deal if it's just 0.75 tight end premium. I'm not sure if I would do it if it was 1.25 premium, which is a 60% increase over the regular scoring, 0.5. I don't know. I have to look at the math and figure that out. It's still very risky, as much as I love these tight ends, to draft one at 105. My balls have shriveled up a little bit the more I think about it. about a month ago, maybe, I was all about like, hey, I'll take Warren at 103.
When you've kind of realized that the needle you have to thread to hit a good tight end versus just a fun, you're always searching for the next tight end. But then when you really evaluate what I have to get with them to make it worth my while to use a high pick, it's tough to click draft on the tight end. I'd probably lean 102. I don't know if the 207 and 301 is enough of a kicker. Now, if you told me it's another second, like a future second, something that I can bank in a start 11 and maybe use later, I could live with that. I'd still probably prefer to wait a little longer, though. I'm not worried about the 102 this far out. Speaking of that, Mr. Talbot had a roster review. We did a roster review live last week, and they will be coming soon on the website. But in the meantime, if you're interested in a review, new pricing, which they'll be very transparent and honest and open on the website here in a couple weeks, you'll be able to see exactly what you get. But in the meantime, if you're interested in one, similar to what we did on the stream, so you go back and look at that, Manic and Chill Review at gmail.com. Just send an inquiry and we'll get back to you shortly. Good, Shane? Did I nail that promo?
You did better than I do. I mean, look, most people do promos better than me. Mine are just fun because they are a train wreck. And it's fun.
You remember when we used to do all the ads?
We did.
We would have ad reads on the other show we did.
Oh yeah.
They were always weird.
I had ad reads when I was on Dynasty Trades HQ,
but you nailed.
My ad reads were literally, hey, these people are paying us to say nice things, so use this promo code or buy their shit because they're giving me money.
Yes. Okay. A few more, and then we'll get out of here real quick. Don't even know the format, but this one was in here, I believe, from last week.
102, 202, and 304.
Roma. Okay, so that's you're selling the peak of Roma Dunze, right? You're basically getting the 102 form, and then you're trading back for an extra third. Yeah, I agree. Regardless, does it?
However you want to split that up. However
you don't even care the format or nothing. 102 is by far the best thing. Yeah, I agree.
Look, again. I just want to put this out there. I'm not saying sell Roma Dunze for anything you can get. I just want to put that out there. But if you get an offer like that, I think you take it.
Shane, do you have the clout to get this data for us? Can you get Sleeper's Dynasty data? Let me
add them. Let me see how that goes.
Aren't you in their DMs?
No. We do follow one another, but that's because they started. That was when they were smaller. I'm pretty sure they've muted me by now. I'm sure.
Sleeper has blocked Shane.
Absolutely. I would think Dynasty Daddy might be able to get that information for us. But from what I remember him saying, some sites are a little stingy with the information they want to give out for whatever reason.
We will hide this comment because if there's anybody that could get it for us, Jeremy from Dynasty Daddy is at the top of the list. So maybe he can't, but that's probably the person to ask. So Fantasy Sports Rookie. I'll check into that for you, and hopefully if we got any data, we'll get it back to you.
Washington Generals, he did a roster review as well. Very eye-opening. He can attest to different points of views being priceless.
Yeah, and we've had a couple reviews recently where the person on the review is just, they're literally making the moves as we're in the room with them.
Love it.
Absolutely. And going, oh, hey, that trade got accepted. Okay, let's refresh the review in real time. Like it's you never know what can happen when you send out the offer. I'm going to finish with this one, Shane.
Okay.
Here my take on T. Higgins. Is he leveraging the Bengals with the same agent? And I know we're going to cover this a lot in the next week, right? But I don't know. Because at first I'm like, oh, he got with Jamar Chase's agent, and that means he has a better chance of coming back to the team, right? But in a weird way, that signing Jamar Chase is never going to be in doubt. It's going to happen. It's going to be hurtful for the management or the ownership because they're going to have to pay. But it's eventually going to happen. But in a way, T's kind of like now, he's kind of piggybacked on Jamar. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they have the same agent. So they're almost like they've joined up and he's applied some of the pressure that Jamar has because he didn't get paid last year. He's now inherited that with his own contract. So in a way, I kind of think it's smart because it's going to get them to probably a fair price point. So That's my take. I still think he ends up coming back. And I can't see, Shane, how they don't end up losing Trey Hendrickson after the Max Crosby deal. Like,
yeah, so he's not.
And honestly, I would honestly trade him if that's the cost for a guy that's going to be 31. Like, that's probably someone you should trade, to be honest.
Yeah, you should probably not be dropping $95 million. He's not. There's no way they give him more than Max Crosby, right? That would just be insanity. Is some team going to do that?
He's better than Max Crosby the last couple of years. He's just older. So you're not paying for his prime. Like, you're paying for he just had his prime. Do you know what I mean? You're paying for so I get why he wants paid, but I think he's probably more the odd man out. If you're talking about, do the Bengals pay T? Do they pay Hendrickson? I mean, I would pay T over Hendrickson because he's 25. You're getting his prime. In this draft class, if you can replace anything, I think it's easier that the Bengals could just shotgun defensive linemen in this class and have better shots than replacing Higgins.
That's what I was going to say. It's a good D-line class. If you need defense, it's a good class. I know no one cares about my opinion on T, but I don't think he's going anywhere either. They're going to give the dude, what, $28 million, $30 million?
Well, so there was a local 40. Last update, because I mean, I'm literally following this. I have a separate Twitter just for NFL free agency, and then I have a separate Twitter just for Bengals talk. So I'll go on a couple different phones so I can see those without them polluting my feed that I have on my normal one. There's a local writer, like a new sports writer or sportscaster in Cincinnati, that has said that the offers for Chase were $37 million, the offers for Higgins were $28 million, and Hendrickson $30 million. So the numbers are about in line with what the market is. The holdup, I guarantee you, is the structure of the contract.
Oh, and the guarantee.
How much guarantees, how much kicks in after a year. Like, those are the things players care about. You know what I mean? Like, money is money. They're all going to probably get around the same range. It's just how much of the guarantees. I mean, that's the thing with Crosby, is he got $90 million guaranteed. That's basically like them giving Hendrickson a $30 million contract extension, fully guaranteed for 3 years, is basically what Crosby got.
Yep.
So, like, it's just, they're probably just not going to do that. So both sides are going to have to concede a little bit, but that's probably what's hanging it up. It's the guarantees, it's the structure, and that's been what the Bengals have always lacked. They'll pay the money because you have to. You're an NFL team. The dollars and cents and the cap is what it is. It's just how much upfront, how much cash, how much guarantees. Like, that's where they've always been behind the 8 ball. So we will see. But a lot coming up in the next 5 days, Shane. What are you most excited before we get out of here? What are you most excited to track during the next week in free agency? Like, what's the storyline that's the biggest impact for Dynasty?
Where the quarterbacks, where do they end up? Where does Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, who else is out there?
Sammy Slinger, Darnold. Does he go back to Minnesota and nuke McCarthy for another year?
Darnold goes back there. It makes it very, very interesting what people are going to do with McCarthy. There's going to be people that are moving McCarthy for a second, and I'll be buying, because we've now seen quarterbacks sit for a couple years, and then
so in the word today from Colleen Wolfe was that it's a 1-year potential bridge deal with the Vikings and Darnold.
I saw that,
because he wants to kind of like solidify his stock even more, I think, for better landing spots than what's available. But I also think he knows that if he signs a deal that is not really good financially and he goes to a terrible team, then, he might be out of the league in a couple years. You know what I mean? But if he goes to Minnesota and gets a 1-year deal, takes the money, kind of like a franchise tag, but less money, he might even be able to increase his stock even more, Shane, as the quarterbacks that are still, I mean, if he can buy another year, Shane is probably looking at something and leaves. If Darnold,
I'm listening.
Well, you're gone. Your camera's gone. I don't see you. I see Shane Says with a big blank circle in the middle.
Circle head. I don't know what's going on with my camera tonight. It is this is a problem. I'm gonna have to talk to Logitech.
Yeah. Anyway, I think with Darnold, if he can take the money and he can buy another year with his stock where it is, that's another year past the likes of Stafford, Rodgers. You know what I mean? Like, he can outlast those guys by another year, which opens up the quarterback market again. Because you can't look at this rookie class and saying this year's rookie class is going to deliver a bunch of quarterbacks taking jobs long term. You know what I mean? So I think it's a perfect year for him to go back to Minnesota on like a $30 million 1-year deal. Start hopefully keeps his stock up and then hits free agency next year with an even more robust market with more better situations potentially for him to go to.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that's it. We'll get out of here. It's 9:05. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. Had over 150 for most of the stream, so it's pretty cool for people to be in here just with us. Someone put a comment in here, Shane. I think it was retired Ridley Truther, who's been around for a long time. Love how Manic and Chill is still going. So I just want to tell you, I don't even know when we did our first show, but it was at least 5 years ago. This show has been on at least 3 different platforms.
Yep.
But it ain't going anywhere, my friend.
Nope.
So every single week, same time, same place, 8:00 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday nights. And like and subscribe if you're not already doing it. Like the content on the channel. We got Dynasty Theory. We got Shane Says. We got Destination Chill or Destination Dynasty. And speaking of that, Destination Chill will be back Sunday night. Ray and I will be doing a show every other week. But Sunday night, I believe that's March 9th? Yeah, this Sunday. We'll be back for 90 minutes just doing our Sunday night show. It'll be kind of a lot like this. We just talk like what both of us like to talk about, and it intermingles pretty well when we're talking, real football and Dynasty. So that'll be back debuting Sunday night, March 9th, every other week, Sundays. So more content on the channel. And Shane, that's it. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.